Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CoinDrop podcast. This is technically kind of episode 74. We'll get into that into a second. But joining me, as always, Tim. It's been a while. 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How long's it been?
It's been 2 weeks where we were not together. So
right.
This is the third week.
Yeah. How you been, man? How's your time been?
Busy.
Yeah.
I was sick on Tuesday randomly. I woke up at like 1:30, almost threw up, but didn't.
Well, that's
Anyways,
good.
Ended up sleeping for like 16 hours or something like that. But the day I was off, the boss suddenly decided that we were going to work 12 throughout the rest of the week, including through today. We ended up only working 5 hours today, and I'm home. I have obviously done nothing but work. As far as the other weeks, it seems normal. I did manage to break my my hard hat today, so I had to buy a new one. So I decided to get some stickers.
Nice.
Whatever doesn't kill you gives you EXP. Critical one, so I guess I'll die.
Yep.
And that's all I have.
You need to throw a CoinDrop sticker on there, man.
I do need to do that.
Yep, you do need to get one of those. Speaking of the CoinDrop stickers, we do have a store as well as a Patreon side. So if you want to know more about any of those things, you can actually go to linktree.com/CoinDropVets. That has all of our links on there to our Patreon, where you can get early access, extra content, that kind of stuff. Has links to the stores where we've got a shirt and a sticker. And I think I built a hat, but I don't recall. But if you want stuff, it's there. You can go and get it and help support us, which we would greatly appreciate. That being said, there was kind of a hidden Tim episode.
Yes.
He streamed on, was it on your YouTube last week?
Yeah,
or?
it was my personal YouTube. Yep.
So Tim streamed a solo episode to his YouTube channel last week. I will work on getting that exported and pushed over to the main side. I was gone. Obviously, I went on a cruise, and things were not conveyed correctly from me to Tim, and there was just a misunderstanding there on how things were going to go while I was gone. I was expecting to have internet on the cruise. Turns out the internet is an extra charge, and it was in no way worth paying for because it would not have been quality enough internet to do anything with, realistically. So couldn't even edit or do anything while I was on the cruise. Had literally no communication with anybody in the outside world outside of the cruise. It's just the way it is. So that episode is like the secret Tim episode. If you want it, we'll make sure it's accessible. It'll be on the YouTube channel. I'll make sure the audio gets exported, hopefully this week alongside this episode as well. This is a pre-recorded episode this week. So for those of you who might be in favor of this format, let us know. If you prefer this over the live streamed and then exported to YouTube and that kind of thing, let me know. This is an experiment that we're doing. I wasn't able to get home on time yesterday to do the live stream. That information was conveyed in our Discord. So if you're a little confused as to why there was no stream, why this is a recorded episode, that information is always on our Discord. You can find out kind of up-to-date information on our announcements page there. That link is also in our link tree, so make sure you consider checking it out. That being said, let's talk about some games. So first thing we have to talk about right now up on the screen. Tim, I know you can't see this because I'm not streaming it.
Nope.
So Ashes of Creation is launching Alpha 2, and the current plan for Alpha 2 is it's going to be about a year long, but this is the first time that NDAs are removed, that the game is mostly feature complete. Content, definitely not, but this is the first time that there's no NDA to play this game. There is still a pretty big buy-in window, but honestly, as someone who has followed this project since its inception, 2017, yeah, you mentioned it. We talked about their Kickstarter when it went live. Yeah. I met them at 2017 at PAX. This game's been in development a long time. Definitely nowhere near as long as like Star Citizen, but it's been going for a while, and it's ever so slightly chugged along in the background of our minds.
You should have mentioned Beyond Good and Evil 2, not Star Citizen, because BGE 2 is in development longer than any other video game. Although they recently confirmed it's still being made.
Is it though? Like, we're going to talk about Ubisoft a little bit later, and we'll get there. But Ashes of Creation is aimed, I've talked about it a couple of times on the show, so if this is your first time hearing about it, go check our show notes in previous shows. We've talked about them at least a handful of times, but the game is planned to be try and recapture everyone's first MMO. Its goal is to be the nostalgia that we all want it to be, but push the genre forward too. Players are going to be able to build cities in this game, not like in the survival sense, but you will do missions that help regions that evolve, and the node system's just really awesome. There's a lot of potentially great stuff with Ashes of Creation that will push gaming in the MMO genre that has been stagnant since WoW's release, arguably since WoW's release. It's going. There's been minor.
MMOs have gotten quite more action focused.
Yes,
but that's only minor, really.
And the formula, for the most part, has been the same since WoW. There's been a couple that have added really cool gimmicks, but let's be honest, that's all they really are. Rift did it with their Rift system. It was really cool, don't get me wrong, but at its core level, it was still very much a WoW clone. And I love that MMO. I do. I loved Rift. I thought it was fantastic.
What they did with it was so disappointing.
Yeah. Ashes of Creation is looking to actually be the next evolution of MMOs. If you haven't heard about it, it's going to have this node system that basically you do quests in a region, gather resources, things that you do in the region help develop that region. And the idea behind it is that the world progresses around the players by their interaction in these areas, and it allows you to have a deeper level of connection to the world and the game than any other MMO ever, because you will literally be able to, at some point when playing this game, talk to a new player and be like, oh yeah, man, like years ago this and this happened in this region and it was really cool, and let me take you over to the town over here we helped build. Like
this city, this wasn't always here.
Yeah.
It used to be forests.
Yeah, we had to fight a dragon that attacked us at one point.
Yeah.
Man, that was a real rough battle, but everybody came in from the region. The guilds came in, and so this walls, but like it's a level of interconnectivity that we have never seen in an MMO that I'm juiced for. And so
it's a level of interactivity and intertwining of everything that's happening so uniquely that no two servers will look the same.
Yes. Yeah.
Cities will be in different locations. There might be a forest here, or it might be chopped down on that one. Like, everything's going to be different. There might be some similarities, given there's only so much they can develop to be branching different ways, but they're trying to branch it or give it so many different branches based on what players do that they'll all look and feel significantly different from one another.
And
that alone is cool.
What's even cooler than that is if you're a Sims player or a Civ player, guess what? You can actually run for like political, like mayor or governor or these things. And then the game changes. Your job is now literally planning the city and deciding what buildings go where, who you allow to build shops, it completely changes with what your intentions are.
It's not like the mayor system or government system in any other MMO where it's like minimal, where you control taxes and stuff like that.
You do get to do that as well, but it goes even further than that. It's a level of MMO that, like, holy shit, when this game comes out, I'm actually going to roleplay the character. Like, it's not just a game at that point. It feels like Dungeons and Dragons to a sense where you can do what you want, and the game supports that. That's the ambition of Ashes of Creation. I can't say that's what they've achieved, but there has been updates in the past where they were talking about, like, if you want to be a bounty hunter, you can literally walk into a tavern, find literal bounties on NPCs and players who have been griefing other players, and go and hunt them, kill them, and collect reward for it. Like, there's all kinds of stuff to do in this game, let alone the lore. I can't nerd out enough about this, but the bottom line is Ashes of Creation is launching Alpha 2. It will last a year. The first wave will cost you about $120 to get into, I think. Let me double check.
120, yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Wave 1, there's going to be 3 waves. So wave 1, I think it's going to run you about $120. And that launches actually in just a couple of days. So by the time you're hearing this, I think that's 8th. November 8th. By the time you're hearing this, I think, well, not quite, but it's almost wave 1 time, which is amazing. After that, wave 2 starts in December on the 20th. That's $110. And wave 3 starts on May 1st of 2025. That's $100. Now, this doesn't just get you alpha access. I want to be clear here. Buying into this isn't just alpha. What's included in all 3 of these levels is wave 2 access, beta 1 key, beta 2 key, and a month of in-game time. Yes, this will not be a free-to-play game. It will not be a pay one-time purchase game. This is a subscription-based game, which in my opinion is the best MMOs. Just historically, the best MMOs are always a subscription-based model. They
look
are.
At the 2 biggest MMOs that have ever existed, Final Fantasy XIV and WoW.
Yeah.
Both of them are still paid to play.
And they're fantastic. Well, maybe not so much, but they have their following, right? Like, it's not for me, but on top of that, there is microtransactions in this game. They have been very, 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 very clear. They are only cosmetic. And if you buy one of these, you get $15 of Embers, which is their premium currency. Cool. Excuse me, for in-game. So you're getting more than just alpha access. You are guaranteeing beta access for both the betas that come after. You're guaranteeing a month of game time when the game comes out, and you're guaranteeing $15. So
just to be clear, because you haven't stated it specifically yet, you are getting the game as well when it does officially launch. You're getting the month free, but you're also
does it say
getting
that? Because
I'm asking you because you're saying you're getting beta. You're getting the beta accesses, and then you're getting a month of game time. If you're getting a month of game time, that sort of suggests you're getting the game as well.
So it doesn't specifically say you're getting the game as well. So I think this is. I mean, arguably, I agree, but it doesn't specifically say you're getting the game. It might be. Again, they're very just couple words here. It literally just says game time -1 months. So
yeah. I would take that as, because traditionally in the past, when there was no such thing as free-to-play MMOs,
right,
whenever you bought an MMO, they would give you a month of game time. That's just what everyone did.
Right.
And so since they're giving you a month of game time, that sort of suggests you're getting access to the game as well. I mean, paying anywhere from $100 to $120, even for alpha/beta, all that stuff, it's still expensive.
Agreed.
And if they're gonna ask me to pay $50 to $60 to $70 more after all of that, that's kind of rough. So again, my assumption / hope would be that they're also getting the game.
I want to be clear, though, that's our assumption. We don't have any information that says that. So don't be surprised if that's not the case, but be aware that it might be the case, I guess is the best way to say that. Personally, for this game, for as excited as I am for it, I am more okay with dishing out $200 over the course of this, because if Alpha 2 is going to run a year, there's still 2 betas planned after that, which will likely run another year, which means at the earliest I could see this game releasing would be 2027 on this current roadmap, if I'm assuming things correctly here, which means, 2 years, 3 years down the road, I don't mind coughing over another $60 to buy the game.
Fair
personally.
enough, yeah.
Personally. I understand everybody's situation is different. I get that. I am at this moment very highly considering buying in for the Wave 3 alpha. And if I do, I will absolutely be sharing my thoughts and experience and some gameplay footage here with you guys next May when that happens. May is my birthday month. I was born on the 17th, so I'm going to treat it as a birthday present to myself if I can afford it. I will be going back to school in January, so finances are going to get a little bit more tight for me very soon.
Yeah, Wave 2 is 5 days before my birthday, so I'm considering doing the same thing.
Ooh, hey, look at that.
Wave 2.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like,
you'd have a couple of months on me.
I mean, Russ has promised on more than one game.
I don't know. I check the tape. Check the tape. Go back and check. I don't think I ever promised nothing. But
one of these days.
They are a old school style MMO. What I mean by that is their combat is tab based targeting. You have active skill hotbar. It is not the action-based combat that a lot of modern MMOs are. They are trying to get that classic feel, but be a modern MMO that pushes the genre forward. And I honestly, looking at the footage that they've shown for their Alpha 2, it looks like they're going to achieve it. I gotta be honest. It looks gorgeous. It looks like it feels like classic MMOs. I'm stoked for it. It's going to have all the modern stuff. It's going to have PvP. It's going to have a huge world. They have a lot of lore and stuff planned currently from what this article that I'm referencing has said, what I've seen. The world mostly feels quote unquote empty right now. Again, it's alpha, so they're trying to find bugs right now. They're trying to find the core issues of the game so that they can fix them. And this is the first time that it's like open to the public. Granted, there's still a large barrier there, right? $120 at a minimum or at a maximum is still a pretty large barrier. But if you're at all interested in this game, I highly recommend you look into it and see if it's something you want to pitch in on. Again, we've been aware of them since 2017. They had a timeline to release by 2020. Then Unreal Engine 5 came out, and they had to weigh the pros and cons on basically rebuilding the game on UE5. They went ahead and made that decision, so that set back their development quite a bit.
It did do a decent number on the game.
But at the same time, like, I feel like this MMO is going to it's going to see a massive draw on every other MMO. I wouldn't be surprised if some MMOs straight up die in the wake of this. Like, I could see Throne and Liberty just disappearing off the map once Ashes of Creation comes out. I could see New Worlds disappearing off the map once this game comes out. I mean, granted, those have their audiences, and I don't think any MMO ever truly dies. There's still people that play EverQuest, even though it's a complete shit game compared to what it started as. But this game is shaped to really change things, and I'm excited for it. I can't freaking wait.
Yeah, we've been talking about it since.
It was one of the first topics we talked about on the original podcast. Like, I remember the articles, countless articles we've written about this game, and
we've been talking about this game for, what is it, 6 years now?
Yeah,
maybe a little bit longer than that.
Yeah,
and we've been following it since it was a Kickstarter game. Like, literally, we could have funded it back then.
Yeah,
although we didn't. Just to add, I don't know, credence to what I said earlier about the getting full access, I asked Twitter's AI, and it more or less said what I did.
Okay.
But it also stated that they have not specifically clarified. But
gotcha.
You look at industry standards and all that stuff. So
I would imagine for $100 or $120, you would get the game as well, but it doesn't specifically say that on their store. So I'm cautioning our listeners to be aware that you might not.
Yeah, you might not. So, I mean, here's the thing, too. You're getting access to the alpha and the future betas.
Yep.
But the alpha is the longest portion of this. It's going to be a year long. Typically, betas aren't very long. They're long enough to stress test and more features and put more of it in there and give the developers more data so they can really make some adjustments. But usually, it's within a few months of launch. And in some cases, it's like the week before it comes out. So it's not really a beta. It's more of a demo.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't expect that to be the case for this game, so I don't know. Honestly, I fully expect at this rate, given alpha launches technically in, 6 days?
Yeah.
Or 5 days?
Yeah.
That we'll probably have it within the next 2 years at the most.
I could see, I could see a late 2025, early 2026 launch. I could see that. I feel like that's reasonable, but it's going to depend on what they find in this alpha.
It's only a year from now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I was thinking more
2026. You're right.
Late 2026 to early, but mid 2026.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because they have said Alpha 2 is going to be about a year. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. But you're not wrong about betas. For example, Monster Hunter Wilds beta is going on now. It is a few months before release, but they've had like three different windows, I think. I played a little bit of it. We'll be talking about that on the Patreon side. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Monster Hunter's latest edition, you can hear that over on Patreon later. If you join us over there. Got to join us. Any final thoughts on Ashes of Creation before we move on, Tim?
No, if you like MMOs in any way, I say no, and then immediately throw some thoughts on it. If you like MMOs in any way, I think it's one that you should look into. Like Russ said, that it is kind of more of a traditional old school MMO, so this is more built for the original crowd of MMO players.
Yeah.
But I still think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't look into what they were trying to go for with this game. I think at the moment, that's going to be somewhat hard because either a lot of the information is old or it's hidden behind like really long form videos, which they do typically pretty frequently. I think they do them at least once a month. But they it's been a pretty transparent development where they're constantly talking to people and getting ideas and getting feedback and all sorts of other stuff. And that's kind of what this alpha is for as well, to do more of that.
They've even gone further than just that. You could have bought into this game in Alpha 1. It was significantly more costly, but the dev team said multiple times that if you were going to buy into earlier Alpha, you were basically agreeing to help build the game. They made it very clear that it wasn't in a playable state. It was in a, hey, it was a crowdfunding sense where it was like, buy the game and we will give you a bunch of extra stuff, not just obviously that access, but you actually are agreeing to help shape the game and write reports and tell them what's wrong and tell them what your thoughts are. Like they've been phenomenal in their community interaction during the course of this game. And I can't fucking wait.
Been pretty awesome.
He's a great guy. Mad respect for that man. All right. Speaking of a company we have mad respect for, let's talk about one we have very little respect for. Rockstar, that's a decent transition. Rockstar has officially launched Red Dead Redemption, the first one, on PC. It's only 14 years late. No big deal, right? Only 14 years. Here's the one thing they did wrong. They didn't make any changes to it at all. They didn't give us a remastered version. They didn't give us an updated version. They ported the PS3, Xbox 360 version to the PC and said, there you go. Doesn't have the online either, but it does have undead multiplayer or undead nightmare.
They didn't even port the PS4, the recent PS4 version.
Nope. It's literally the classic PS3 version that they ported over. So
and they're charging $50.
Yes, an insane amount for a 14-year-old game. The game launched on October 29th, and of course, once again, just like Bethesda, modders have to pick up what the devs do wrong. So, for those of you watching this on screen, this is not stock Red Dead Redemption, because I know you're looking at this going, wow, that looks pretty good. It looks like they updated it. They didn't. This is a mod. This is Reality Redemption Overhaul for RDR on PC. This is someone, another fan, who took it upon themselves to clean up the mess of Rockstar, who didn't care enough to give us a quality product and decided to say, yeah, you're going to pay $50 for it anyways, even though you can pick up this exact game on the PS3 or Xbox for less than $20. So here's what they've done in this mod. Okay, so all of this is a 2K texture pack. It's not a 4K. The mod developers are saying they're working on a 4K one, but they don't know if it's going to be achievable. So what you're looking at here is increased memory pools and improved general performance, improved reflection quality, improved draw distance for vegetation, draw distance for the map, improved particles and particle counts, improved debris variation and count, improved physics of liquid like water, improve AI behavior, improve the game camera to behave more like RDR2, improve the euphoria physics, improve random events spawn and spawn rates, improve materials and their interactivity, improve culling, modified the movement animations for smoother transitions, improve John Marston textures, improve game world textures such as trails, roads, grounds, and grass, fix the nighttime broken fog and other cycle shortcomings. Sorry, there's a long list here.
When did this come out again, you said?
This mod? Or the game?
No, the game. Was it 28th or 23rd?
29th. It came out only a few days ago, and somebody's already done all of this.
Yeah, so just in a couple of days, some random modder was like, hey, let's make this a good port. And Rockstar couldn't even bother to do anything.
Yep. So additionally, they've improved secondary character textures and buildings, improved tree textures and small physics-based props, improved cloud sky hats, not sure what that is, improved vehicle draw distance, improved the shadow maps and shadow distance, improved skylighting and time cycles, improved weather and cloud variations, and improved the overall weather system, improved cloud shadows, added an option to disable rainy weather at Thieves Landing, fixed the moonlight light ground over bright issue, improved rain effects, figured out why Rockstar didn't implement a proper post-FX system in this game, increased some memory allocations, update the game's lore with new dialogue and subtitles, improve weapons and environmental sounds, added new and improved particle and effect textures. They basically rebuilt the game. They said, hey, Rockstar, hold my beer. And I got to be honest, I'm not going to buy this game for a while until it's on a good sale. But now I might actually buy the game because this guy put in the work to make this game look worth it. And
I'm watching the trailer now. I remember when I played this game, I fucking loved it. I was so in love with this game. I played the shit out of it. I got super into it.
The Euphoria engine was groundbreaking. The physics-based engine that Euphoria was, they used it in GTA 4 and in Red Dead. And I thought that was the future of gaming. And it's kind of fallen by the wayside, unfortunately.
Rockstar, I'm pretty sure, is one of the few developers that still uses it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Star Wars: The Force Unleashed used it too, and it was fantastic in that game. So,
I remember looking it up at one point. There are a few other games that use it as well, but I mean, like literally just a few. So
yeah,
it's sad, but it's a phenomenal engine.
And it just. It's been, what, 5 days? 5 days since the 29th?
Right.
5 days. Not even a full week.
This released like 2 days ago, didn't it? Something
like this came out on the 1st. So, 2 days ago. So, 3 days after the game launched, this mod drops.
I'm watching a video now, and
it's gorgeous.
It doesn't quite look like a modern game, but it still looks really good compared to what it would have.
Yeah, I mean, your polygon count is still only what it was when the game was made. He didn't increase the level of detail, but he increased the textures, and just doing that makes it look a lot better than what they gave us. It's still not worth $50 by any stretch, but anybody looking to get this game on PC, I highly recommend getting Reality Redemption Overhaul. Like, that just seems like something you need to do, in my opinion. Speaking of reality checks, I guess. Dragon Age Veilguard.
Oh, good lord.
There's a lot about this game right now. It's all over the place. There's a lot of issues, and we're going to kind of dive in and share our thoughts. Tim, I know you only got some time to play it. I got about 2 hours into this. I'm going to be clear here. I didn't pay for this game. I acquired it through other means. I'm not going to go into detail past that. I didn't pay for this game. I personally, on principle, refuse to pay for this game. And we'll get into why in a bit, but there is a lot of issues around this game, and I want to be clear up front right now. Half of the criticism, probably more than that, that's out there about this game is from people who haven't played the game, that are just on the internet screaming about DEI and trans agenda and shit like that. And I want to say right now, those people just need to shut the hell up, because you're clouding the space for real criticism. And there is a lot to criticize on this game beyond those two things. And regardless of what side you fall on it, the bottom line is simple. You have choices in an RPG, and you can make choices. That's it. The game doesn't force you into anything. It doesn't make you play a trans person. It doesn't even, as far as I've seen, involve trans people, other than, I think, one companion at some point. Yep. Yeah.
Tosh is.
Who cares?
I mean, the only bit of caveat I'm gonna give to this is they do have a bit of a preachy sequence in the game. There's a couple minute long preachy sequence that basically says that if you misgender someone, you need to do it this way, because otherwise it's not good enough. And see, I'm better than you because I'm apologizing, right? And
there's this thing called a skip button.
Yeah, but either way, it being ham-fisted into a video game, a fantasy video game at that,
yeah,
it just doesn't feel right. It feels like it doesn't belong at all.
I'll agree.
But like you said, in general, that's not what's wrong with this game.
Yeah.
There's way bigger problems with it.
Yeah. That definitely feels preachy, and there are many video games that have preached their views on things in other ways. This is just one that has a big audience that's loud against it, and I think they're overshadowing a lot of the real criticism here. So I'm going to be clear, we won't be talking about the whole DEI nonsense. It's not what's wrong with this game. It's a small fraction of it, and at the end of the day, no one is forcing you to play that. No one is forcing you to play a non-binary character. You have that option. That's it. And you can skip dialogue if it offends you. You can't accuse people of being weak and snowflakes and being hurt by words when you're the same thing. Just move on with your life.
You're doing exactly the same thing.
Exactly. Just move on. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, it's been a while since I played it. I'm pretty sure Cyberpunk 2077, you could also play non-binary. No one bitched about that. Whatever.
I mean, hell,
move
you
on.
could be a female running
with a
around
dick.
With a big giant
you
dick.
can do that in Baldur's Gate 3. Who cares? You're
and
not
nobody
being
cared about that game either.
You're not being pigeonholed into it. There isn't a huge narrative here that revolves around trans rights and this and that and the other. It's a small section, like you said, maybe a minute long, and there's a character that's in the game that honestly, her being trans or it being trans is not the issue. It's the fact that it's a Kunari and they butchered them. That's the issue.
But they totally destroyed the absolutely. That's the biggest.
Yeah,
not the biggest, one of the big problems.
I'm going to let you start. I'm going to let you start with your experience with what you played, because I had a little bit more time than you did. So let's start with what you played and what you experienced. Yeah, this footage, by the way, for those of you who are watching, is recorded from my gameplay. So this is my gameplay, not Tim's.
Yeah. So I too acquired it via other means. So I guess just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
I was playing it yesterday, trying to anyways. I got home and I had to wait for it to unpack and all these other things just to be able to play it. And then I had to wait for the shader compilation, then the update, and so on and so forth. I sat there. I think I got home at 6:30, started all of that, didn't get started until after 9. And I was still expecting the podcast at that point, so I was doing my best to get through it. I think I probably played, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. when I first turned it on, I got that first initial cutscene where they're talking about Solus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into the character creator. So I started working on my character, and I spent my time on it, made sure I made the best character that I could. And then as soon as I hit, continue, it loaded in with me standing on a table. I was like, what the hell? What? Okay. So I moved myself, and then as I was falling off the table, the next cutscene started where it starts with like, where was I? Oh yeah, him, and it starts talking about Solus again. And I was like, oh. Okay.
Weird.
And then the cutscene begins where you're in the bar scene and you can start making your choices and start playing the game. It was a little bit choppy for me, which is a little weird because the game is Steam Deck verified, which we've had conversations about this on the Discord earlier today, me and Logan. Someone on Twitter that I saw last night basically said that really shouldn't have been Steam Deck verified, especially once you get to the cities. One, it looks like crap, it's fuzzy and all sorts of other stuff, but once you start to get in the areas where that's CPU limited, meaning that like a lot of shit is happening at one time,
right?
Like cities, it starts to struggle a little bit. But I didn't look too much at this person's footage. I just saw that they were not very happy with it. Anyways, my PC is better than that by a significant margin, so I shouldn't be having the troubles that I was. It was choppy. It seemed to me a little bit like shader compilation at first, and then I realized it was just constantly choppy. It didn't matter where I was at or if I was running around the same area, and they should have loaded by now, kind of thing. And then there was I can't remember exactly what happened in the cutscene, but there was a small little cutscene, the ones that pop up as they're just kind of giving you an idea of what's going on. My character's hair disappeared for some reason, and I was like, oh, okay, well maybe the next cutscene it'll pop back up. Nope, I was just bald continuously for the next 10-15 minutes.
You just
no matter what,
temporarily diagnosed with cancer, bro. You just had to lose it all. You had to go through chemo for a minute.
During gameplay, when cutscenes would start and stop, it didn't matter. It was just I was hairless. Suddenly, I had no hair.
Weird.
I think it actually might have been part of the cutscene where I was knocked off my feet, which kind of even made it funnier because that's what made me lose my hair. I literally had the hair knocked off of my head. But anyways. I then played with some settings because I was hoping maybe lowering it to medium or whatever and whatnot, playing with it might affect the gameplay to make it better, less choppy and stuff. And it told me that in order to have all of the settings appropriately change, I had to do a restart. So I was like, okay, whatever. It's time for me to go, help the wife with whatever. So I turned the game off, which, by the way, froze my computer. Oddly enough, I was able to save it. I was able to turn it off, and then it stayed black like it was shutting down. Never came back on. So I was like, okay, so just hard shut off my PC.
Yeah.
Whatever, I guess. What can I do? Turned it back on, and it verified my shaders again, almost like if it was the first time. It took like almost another 10 minutes just to verify the shaders, which isn't shaders compiling, it was verifying the shaders. It was taking its sweet ass time, so I was a little annoyed by that.
Sure.
Finally waited, got back in it again. And when I actually didn't get in, I got into the start screen. I hit load. And when it loaded up, it actually loaded up. I was looking at my character for about 5 seconds, and then it said something was wrong with it, and it kicked me out. Because something was wrong with it couldn't load the file path or something along those lines.
Rough.
It's like, okay, that's annoying. I tried it again, and then did the same thing. Tried it again, did the same thing. Shut the game off, turn it back on. The shaders verified again, but they verified significantly faster the second time, whatever. And then I still had save file issues. So I said, okay, I guess my save file is broken. Wonderful. Went to go make another character. Started all over. Thankfully, I was able to load in my existing character already, so I didn't have to do none of that.
That's good.
I did have to choose the history section, based on like the 4 choices for the previous
fucking
games.
4 choices. We're going to talk about that when you're done. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I had to do those again, which minimal, no big deal, but I did check it just to make sure. Did that, loaded in. Oops, just karate chopped my mic. Sorry. Loaded in again. Started playing for a little bit, and then it crashed. Like the game just crashed. I was like, wonderful, awesome. Loaded it back up. And no, that's not what happened. I'm sorry. The first time I went to check my settings to see if the settings had stayed the same, and they hadn't. And when I had played it the first time before I changed the settings, because it started on high, I believe was my default settings were high.
Got it.
I changed it. I changed an individual setting, which then changed it to custom by itself. And so it's a slider, or not a slider, but like a button. It looks like a slider, but there's a button on either side of it. So when you click left, custom is to the right of ultra, by the way.
Right.
So I hit left to bring it down. and it went to ultra, and then it froze. So I couldn't play the game anymore. So I control delete, shut it down, loaded it back up. And when it was loaded back up, I went straight to the settings, and instead of changing anything individually, I went to the right to low first. And it then totally froze my computer, and I was like, okay, fuck this, I'm done. This is ridiculous. So I turned it off and just went to bed because it was 10:45 and I didn't need to sleep for work today. So my experience wasn't very good this morning.
Yeah.
And the game did warn me, to be honest with you. And this is what I think the issue was, but I don't know because I can't imagine that the game would have this many issues. But maybe it was. I don't know. Anyways, when I very first started the game after everything, it said it actually popped up with a prompt saying that the game needs to be on an SSD.
Huh.
Otherwise, it could only be run in low settings.
Interesting.
Yeah, it actually came up with a prompt that specifically stated that, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I installed this on my SSD, not my hard drive slave.
Huh.
Hard drive. And I was at work when I thought about all this, and so when I came home, it actually was installed on my hard drive disk. But either way, it still froze when I was on low.
Yeah.
So anyways, I did notice that when I was playing with all the settings, it gives you that little bar of telling you how much of your VRAM it's using.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that, but when I was last night, my VRAM was like all the way up. It was I had 8 gigs, and it was using like 7.6, something like that, almost all of it.
Yeah, you were capping out that GPU.
Yeah, so I was playing with all my settings, trying to bring it low. Anyways, today I looked at it, like I said, it was on my hard drive, and so I swapped it over to my solid state, and instantly the VRAM dropped to like 4, I think.
Wild.
Yeah, it actually lowered it pretty significantly. And I actually let it default at high. I haven't played with any of the settings at all. I just defaulted to high, put it on the SSD, and it seems to be running better. I played it for maybe 15 minutes before we started talking.
Gotcha.
I got to the scene where Varric talks to Solus on the thing.
Yep.
And I'm about to go take that pillar down. So
Gotcha.
I didn't get anything past that. So I didn't really get to do much.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be playing smoother. And
Gotcha.
so we're finally getting to that era of video games where an SSD is kind of required. You don't have a choice anymore.
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't know that. So it's funny. I wanted you to go first because we talked very, very briefly. You mentioned your hair disappearing before the podcast, and I wanted to stop that conversation so I could hear it from you while you were talking. Weirdly, one of the biggest praises this game has gotten is how well it's optimized.
Yeah.
So when you said you were having issues, I was like, well, we got to stop because that's not been my experience at all. So one of the biggest praises is it's incredibly well optimized. And I have to agree with that from my experience. Obviously, Tim, you had some issues.
But hopefully are resolved.
Hopefully. I mean, you got it on the solid state, so it sounds like everything's working well. I put this on my N.2, so immediately it was just fine. But my gameplay that you guys have been watching, if you're on the YouTube side, is on max settings, full ray tracing, all the good stuff, and I am generally at least running at 50 FPS, which is good enough for me. It dips occasionally, but I'm anywhere between 90 to 50. It's above 30, it's above 45. I'm happy with it.
I gotta add here, just to throw the Digital Foundry in there, they are the kind of people that if you go from 60 to 50, they think that's like super distracting and unplayable, and you're talking 90 to 50 and being totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way as you. I don't really care that much.
I just want to be above, like my minimum is 30. Like I need to be above 30 because every frame above 30 does look significantly smoother, right? Like 60 looks great, 90 looks even better, 120 looks amazing. Like, but ultimately, as long as I'm close to that 60 FPS, I'm happy at a minimum. And for the most part, the gameplay ran very smoothly. From what I experienced. I want to talk about what's wrong with this game before we go into anything else on my experience with it so far. The biggest sin this game commits is its disrespect to the games that came before it. We've talked about it before with Kunari. I'm not going to touch on that. There are only 4 choices from the previous game, not games, the previous game that import into this. When you build your character, your next thing to do is to either take a stock Inquisitor or to build a custom one and they give you the option to make choices. I don't remember the fourth one, so you'll have to clue me in here, Tim, because I remember it being just as irrelevant as the other ones. The first three choices are, did you romance anyone, and if so, who? The second one was, did you disband the Chantry, or did you continue, or disband the Inquisition, or did you continue? The third one was, did you swear justice on Solus, or were you trying to save him from himself? I don't remember the fourth one. Do you remember the fourth one?
Damn,
it was
right now,
just
I'm
as
not either,
meaningless,
because-
right? Like, it was just
it was-
as meaningless. It was just as arbitrary, and that right there is a huge issue. When go ahead.
What was the last one you said?
Whether or not you were going to stop Solus because of like justice, or because you wanted to save him from himself, or whatever it was.
It was
Yeah.
like stop him at all costs.
Yeah, and then there was one
save
more.
himself, yeah.
But here's this right here is a primary
None of that
example.
means anything, yeah.
It's so irrelevant, dude. When Dragon Age Keep came out prior to the release of Inquisition, I spent hours on there making the choices that I wanted to shape that world save, so I had everything, and every single choice I felt like mattered. And they chose 4 from the last game that are arbitrary and unimportant, ultimately unimportant, because they're completely disconnected from everything prior to them. It's 4 choices that are so meaningless because they disrespect the past of these games.
So unless making these choices, I'm like just trying to spitball here. So the whole Inquisition, you either disband them or you give it up to the Chantry, right?
Yeah.
So unless somehow the world itself is going to play differently,
I don't think it does at all.
Still exists.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I highly doubt that's the case based on what I've read or watched from people like Skill Up and various others. The way the game's just designed, it's very linear. There are some slightly open spaces. It's nothing like Inquisition where there's giant open areas.
Yeah.
But they give you just a little bit of player agency in some areas, to my understanding, a little bit later in the game. But there's no way for them to be able to redesign this in such a way where, say, that choice would mean anything other than maybe a dialogue option.
Yeah.
Somewhere. And that's basically how all of the choices feel.
Yep. They feel like minor.
What does it matter?
Yeah.
What does it matter that my Inquisitor had a relationship with one of these characters in the previous game, especially when my Inquisitor's not in the damn game?
And arguably none of the characters are. I'm sure there's cameos from them, but that's it. Like, they're one-offs, I'm sure.
Exactly.
So it's for me, I guess the best way I can explain this, I think from what I've experienced, Dragon Age Veilguard is an okay action-adventure game. I will never call this an RPG, and I'll get into that in a little bit. I don't think it's worthy of the title Dragon Age, because so much of it is it's disrespectful to its past, to what came before, to what the amazing writing and storytelling was in the past. And for it to just ignore all of that character development and world growth and lore is so effed up, in my opinion. This is very much like Assassin's Creed Odyssey to me. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a pretty good game. It's not an Assassin's Creed game at all. It is not. It does not deserve that title. It doesn't play like Assassin's Creed. It doesn't use any of the philosophy or any of the structure of Assassin's Creed. They wanted to compete with Witcher 3, and they made a decent open world adventure game. It is not Assassin's Creed. Yep. That's what Veilguard is. Veilguard doesn't... Good.
I'm going to give Ubisoft a tiny bit of side bit here. They did say that they're going to try and make the future storyline actually have a meaning again.
Yeah,
so they're actually going to go back to what we cared about. But
for Assassin's Creed?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
But as far as Dragon Age is concerned, I mean, it's pretty much exactly as you say. Like, they're basically saying, yeah, the last game really don't matter. We're doing this now. Which they actually did kind of come out and say, and they didn't come out. They came out and said that they have a super secret overarching storyline that they're working towards. And
I don't believe it. To me, that's like George Lucas saying, like, well, I had all 6 movies planned before. No, you didn't. Like, it's the same BS.
I can see them having some sort of generalized idea of how they want it to end and what they want to have, maybe a little bit of what they want to happen in the middle, or in between. But my point in that is that they're taking the name Dragon Age and they're sprinkling just the tiniest bit from the previous game on it to make it, quote, feel and look like a Dragon Age, even though it doesn't feel like one. Yeah. To say that it's Dragon Age.
Yep.
And they're basically saying that last meal sucks ass. I'm gonna make this next one better, even though I'm gonna take my general ideas from that. And they actually have kind of said that this game is the first good / fun Dragon Age.
I disagree completely.
No, 100%. Yeah.
So I'm going to go into why this isn't an RPG. This is as much of an RPG as Black Ops 6. And the reason for that, dude, it's bad. It's real bad. The reason for that is there's no real impact to choices, okay? No. BioWare was once a great company, and they came up with a brilliant idea that reshaped dialogue. They created the dialogue wheel. And the intention behind the dialogue wheel came from Mass Effect, when you could choose to be a paragon or a renegade, good or bad. Not necessarily that black and white, but that's the ultimate idea. The reason they came up with the chat wheel was so that you could see physically on the chat where your options lied. Obviously, the higher, the better. The lower, the more aggressive. And there's middle ground, there's specials, there's things like that. You still have the dialogue wheel in Dragon Age Veilguard. There is no good or bad. You are only a good guy. Only.
So there are... I would agree with you 100% with what you're saying, but they give you the illusion that there are good, medium, and bad options.
Yeah, and they're
like
not.
little like emojis that go with them to show like, you're choosing the good option, or you're the the big tough guy.
Yeah.
So
they're not.
But ultimately the options really are: I'm the good guy, I'm a little bit less of a good guy, and then I'm still just a good guy.
Yep. Yeah. Because I chose a lot of the like aggressive options, and they weren't aggressive. They were just like, player says this, and it's like, okay, cool, we need to go. Or like, oh, you can't go through there, this or that. And it's like, well, we can force our way through, it'll be fine. Like, there's no like, it doesn't have the same agency that Mass Effect did, or the first Dragon Age, or even Inquisition, where you could be kind of a jerk if you wanted to. Yep. We talked about it, but Tim plugged in briefly here. There's a 45-minute review from SkillUp. I don't know if you guys know him. He's pretty well known. I'd never heard of him before, but there's so many people in this space that I'm not obviously surprised. He does a very long review that I think is a very reasonable, justifiable criticism of this game. I think Dragon Age is an okay game. I will never pay any money for this game ever, because it's just not what personally I wanted. I feel like a lot of the gameplay mechanics feel more like a third-person shooter than they do an RPG. Your gear, you just find stuff and then hit a button, and it tells you, you can see it on screen. You hit a button and say, oh, that's better, click Y and equipped. Like it's instant equip gear. You auto loot your enemies. The puzzles, quote unquote, are like grab that object and put it there.
There's so much wrong with the game. He's kind of bullet pointing everything that's wrong with it. But the biggest problem that we've said is it's not an RPG. Like, your choices don't matter. There's
no player agency. There's none.
Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, he was even talking about the conversation wheel, right? Mm-hmm. And when Dragon Age or Mass Effect first came out, the wheel was, when you chose an option, you were choosing directly what your character would say. And it's kind of evolved since then to where you're going to choose the gist of what your character says. That way there's a little bit of mystery for you as the player. Yeah. So, it might say one thing and then your character will say something slightly different, but ultimately the same thing. Yeah. This game, it actually does a lot of that, but in a really terrible way. The SkillUp actually shows it, at least I believe it was SkillUp.
He did, yeah.
He shows it where he was trying to be, a dickhead in several cases. And in one of the cases, it actually gave him the option to basically call the guy an idiot. Yep. But when it came time to the character actually to say it, he just goes, yeah, no, you can't do that anymore. Yeah. Something along those lines. He says, are you serious, is what he actually says. And it's like, that's not even close. No way mean. Yeah. And that goes on for the rest of the game in between all the different characters. When the characters squabble, it's literally petty. Literally as if I am going to my 6 and my 8-year-old and I'm trying to talk to them down so they'll stop being upset at each other. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's wrong? What can I do better for you? And how can you guys work together to make this a happy little family? Yeah. Literally. Yeah. That is what happens in this game over and over and over again. There is no inner conflict that actually matters. You can't piss someone off enough to where they become, they don't like you anymore or whatever it is. Supposedly you can. Kind of. Supposedly you can, but like, again, going back to SkillUp. By the way, when this guy brings up criticism, he gives you examples. Yeah, all throughout this 45-minute
presents a lot of supporting evidence to his complaints.
He is not just telling you what he doesn't like. He's showing you. And I'm trying to remember where I was going with that. So there is supposed to be the means to upset your companions enough to where they stop helping you or whatever it is that's going to be, you've pissed them off enough. He said no matter what, even though he chose the bad option every single time, there was only one character he could manage to get into that mode.
Yeah. The hardened mode is what it was, and it makes him do more damage but less likely to give you help or whatever. But yeah, there's,
which is so minimal. So minimal.
In a this is the weird thing. We're in a post Baldur's Gate 3 world where that game achieved something no other game really has in player agency and freedom, and intertwining character stories with the main plot, and just doing an amazing job at telling a story and giving the player options. We live in a post BG3 world now where we've seen that that's possible, and it's widely not necessarily expected, but like successful. And the weird thing is Dragon Age, its original inspiration was Baldur's Gate 2. So now you've got a game that's coming out after its actual like influences sequel, and it's so much worse than the game that inspired it in the first place. Yep. There's from Skill Up, again, I'm not going to spend the 50 hours it takes to play this entire game. It's not worth it to me. Stalker 2 comes out this month, and I'm just, Dragon Age is not, I'm not going to play it. Skill Up does a great review. I can't say it enough. He does. Watch it. Please watch it. It's, if you're thinking about getting this game, seriously watch it. If you're not a fan, if this is your first Dragon Age game, honestly, you'll probably enjoy it. You probably will. This game is, the biggest criticism of it is that it's safe. The game never gets scary. It doesn't attack. It doesn't approach any dark concepts or get into anything that's too heavy. It's a light-hearted romp through a fantasy world that should be a lot darker. The first game starts with you joining the Grey Wardens in a blood ritual where one guy dies immediately at the feet of the guy doing the ritual. Another guy tries to leave, and the dude performing the ritual straight up shanks him and kills him in front of you. Yep. That's how the game, the franchise started. This game never gets close to that.
The games have basically gone from, like, what's some of the darkest horror you can imagine, like of movies. I'm trying to think, like, think of it like I don't know. Damn, I can't. I have a director's name in my head. But anyways, think of like some of the darkest movies that you can imagine, some of the darkest horror movies that you can imagine. That's what the first Dragon
Ridley Scott, Aliens.
There you go, Ridley
yeah.
Scott. Sure, Ridley Scott. There you go. Super dark, super scary, super serious, like actually deep and heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like I'm watching what the hell's his name? A Disney Pixar movie. I was going to name a specific one.
Shrek.
It's no, I was going to mention Woody and what's the other
Toy
guy?
Story.
Toy Story. No, well, the other guy.
Buzz
Lightyear. The new Buzz movie.
Yeah, got you. The new Lightyear movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, graphically, it kind of looks and feels like that too, which is...
It does, yeah. You could actually slot in, like, Shrek characters into this art style, and it would look fine.
It would look perfect, yeah. And it's not necessarily a bad art style. There's plenty of games that look like that, or that look even more cartoony that I freaking love. Genshin Impact and Visions of Mana, etc.
And honestly, playing this, it looks really good in this art style. It doesn't look like Dragon Age, but it looks really good. Other than the Qunari.
Yeah, other than that, they look terrible. But the overall change in the game and every aspect of the game, from adult to preteen, maybe, because you are killing things. Demons, I guess. You know, I haven't seen any instance of blood or anything of that sort. Maybe there is later, but like you mentioned, from a blood ritual where people die and get killed immediately, and to oh no, the bad guy's gonna bring demons in the world. Oh no, let's stop him.
Yeah,
and no conflict, no major conflict in between. My understanding, again, I'm gonna bring up Skill Up, and actually several. I forget the guy's full name, but people shorten it to Mort. This guy liked the game, and he had a similar length of a review. It was like 45, 50 minutes, where he was talking about what he liked about the game and why it's his favorite, and so on and so forth. And I struggled to watch it because, unlike Skill Up, where, like we said, when he brought up a criticism, he would then bring up evidence to show you why he was saying what he was saying. Mort didn't really do any of that. He would basically go, well, the storyline's actually really good because, I think it's good. And that was...
It's good because I think it is. Yeah.
That was basically the depth of what he liked about the game. He did say the combat had a little bit of depth to it, and you could choose, different skills, and you can control your party members, and you can chain attack stuff together, blah, 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 whatever. But he didn't really provide any evidence for why things were good or bad. He just said, I like the game, and you should play it because I like the game.
Yeah.
And Skill Up and Mort both did specify, and I want to say I saw at least one other person on Twitter that the last couple hours of the game are actually pretty darn good. They feel impactful, and they actually feel like what Dragon Age used to be, in the sense of when you have some choices to make, and they actually do make a difference.
Yeah.
But the problem is when the game starts as if that's what matters, but immediately rips it all out of your hands until the last 2 hours of this 50+ hour game, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a choice-driven game, and you presented it as such, and then you took it away from me until the very end.
Yeah.
What's the point?
So talking about story, I feel like there's some weird stuff going on with this. I don't know what their team of writers consisted of, but I want to talk about that a little bit because I did a little bit of research here.
I will tell you, they're all new.
Well,
like none of the original team.
Yesn't, right? So we're going to get into that.
Yep.
David Gator, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He wrote the story for Dragon Age Origins all the way through Inquisition. He was the lead writer of that. He left BioWare in 2016, so shortly after Inquisition came out. He has written for a lot of games. He's done a lot. He has worked on, funny enough, Baldur's Gate 2. He's worked on Neverwinter's Nights. He worked on Knights of the Old Republic. He worked on just a handful of great RPGs. Okay. The person that took over for David Gator is named Trick Weeks. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Trick wrote mostly DLC and expansions. He was the lead writer. I believe it's a he. Yes, I assume. Married to a Karen, so maybe. Anyways, Trick.
I think it's a trans person, if I remember correctly.
Well, whoever it is, this individual, I have no information to go on here. So this individual was the lead writer for actually the Dragon Age Inquisition DLCs, Jaws of Hakon and Trespasser. And they're also the lead writer for Veilguard. Now, those DLCs were pretty good. And honestly, they don't have a lot of experience. Most of their writing has been as a writer credited to other BioWare games. They don't have a lot of range. They haven't done other games, other franchises, things of that nature. So it doesn't necessarily mean they are a bad writer. They just don't have the storied history that David Gator did. That being said, the actual storyline plot to this game is fairly well written. From what I have experienced of the story and the actual dialogue pertaining to the story, it's pretty good. It's interesting. It's not great. It's not what I wanted, but that was made clear when they made the change from Dreadwolf to Veilguard, which signals a whole nother issue with this game. It's not what I wanted, but it's actually fairly well written, and it's very well voice acted. Honestly, the voice acting in this game is pretty phenomenal. The facial animations are trash, but the voice acting is actually pretty phenomenal.
It really isn't that bad.
The problem with this game is its supporting writing. The inner dialogue, the dialogue between characters when you're just running throughout the world, the dialogue for side quests, the dialogue for side conversations. There's literally a point in this game, Tim, you didn't get to this, where you get on a Bastila very early in the game and you use it to blow out a wall. And the second you blow out the wall, you can clearly see there's Darkspawn behind it coming at you. And yet Harding needs to say, oh no, look out, there's Darkspawn behind that wall. You're literally still looking at the wall, seeing the Darkspawn right there. But this is a dialogue option they felt they needed to portray to you, to tell you, hey, those are enemies right there, even though you just fought some and got on this Bastila to break this wall, and you're looking at this now broken wall with enemies there. Hey, watch out, there's enemies there. Yeah. It's supporting dialogue that really flounders on this game, and Skill Up kind of talks about that as well.
Yes. I saw a clip. There's a lot of instances like that.
Yes,
in the
there's a
game
lot,
as well.
and it's not one or
not
two.
even just
It is throughout the whole game. That's what I want to make clear here. This is not a one-off kind of thing. This is constant throughout the game. That these dialogues are just a 4-year-old. Like, that's what it feels like. They feel like they're written by a 4-year-old.
So, but it's not even just dialogue too, though. Like, I've seen clips. There was some instance. I have no idea where in the game it happens, but basically all of the main characters are running away from the Fade.
Okay.
Or the demons from the Fade.
Sure.
I can't remember what they're called. But they're running away from them, and they run into some giant carcass. But the carcass is just a skeleton. They fit through the ribs, and for some reason, the Fade, which are basically skeletal type monsters, can't fit. they're all significantly smaller than every character in the party, and for some reason they can't fit in between these ribs, and so they're like reaching in as if like they're, you know, there's a jail cell in between them, and it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, why can't these things slip through just like the main characters did? And there's multiple instances like that where it's like
plot armor.
There's a,
plot armor. That's why plot armor.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. But the point is why are we either one, playing it safe, two, where is the disconnect here, or three, what 4-year-old wrote this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels lazy. It feels amateur, and it feels disappointing.
This doesn't feel like BioWare's back. This feels like what we can expect from new BioWare. And the reality is, this is a success for BioWare, which honestly turns my stomach that this game is a success. They sold fairly well on Steam. They apparently sold well on PlayStation and Xbox. This is their biggest selling game that they've ever released on Steam. And it's really disappointing to hear that.
There's a caveat to that specifically.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a big caveat to that. There's been no other BioWare game that's ever launched day and date on Steam before.
Right.
Not
You're
one.
not wrong.
And
You're
so
not wrong.
You really can't compare its big numbers to any other BioWare game.
Right.
You can compare it to other EA games, but even most of those haven't launched day and date on Steam.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the only one that has is Star Wars The Survivor, and that one I think managed somewhat similar numbers, although Veilguard is a little bit higher than that. I think they capped out at like 84,000. Which, so I don't quite know how much of a success it is because everyone's touting that it is. Other people are calling it a flop because when you compare 84,000 concurrent players at its max versus, let's say, Black Myth Wukong earlier in the year, that
millions,
2.4 million, which I believe is the top played game as far as concurrent players ever.
In my opinion, what it comes down to is did the game make the developers money? Did it cover its cost? And I don't think it did.
Right now, I don't think it did either. And I think that this was actually probably going to be a bigger disappointment in the long run because, sure, you've got 3 platforms to play it on, and we don't have all of the numbers. But, again, look at Baldur's Gate 3. They capped out at 935,000 or something like that concurrent players. And they still cap out at more than Veilguard has so far.
Or probably ever will, to be honest.
Or probably ever will, especially because it's already been a few days. And Friday and Saturday nights are usually the biggest night. The first Friday and Saturday nights are almost always the biggest nights for any video game launch ever.
Yes.
They almost never continue past that. And a game like this is definitely not going to. And so my mind goes, I wonder, like, because the game, I don't know its budget. I actually haven't looked it up, but I would imagine its budget was probably somewhere closer to 100 to 200 million, somewhere in there.
It's got to be. They've been working on it supposedly since like 2018, 2016, something like that. Like they've been working on this as long as Ashes of Creation has been being worked on.
And it had a huge VR
change
PR push where they were advertising it and all sorts of other stuff. It had massive changes because it was originally supposed to be a live service title a few years ago.
Yeah.
And like there's not a small amount of money put into this game. And there's no way that it's already such a success based on the player counts that we can see on Steam alone.
That it's recovered that cost. I don't see it.
And I don't know if it ever will. But
I don't think it will.
We'll eventually know, even if it's 15 years from now when one of the developers finally goes, that game never made a profit.
I don't think it will. I really don't. I don't see this game making a profit. I think this is what we have to expect from new BioWare, and it's honestly, I'm kind of glad they didn't go back to Anthem, because seeing this work, had they tried to rebuild Anthem and made it worse because they tried to do whatever this is, it would have been terrible. It's not a great RPG. It's not even remotely a good RPG. It's an okay action game. I don't recommend playing this on a hard difficulty. If you want to play it, the difficulty in this game is artificial difficulty. All they do is make the monsters have more health and do more damage. That's it. It doesn't make the game. It doesn't give them new animations. Doesn't give them new AI. Doesn't give them new skills. It literally is just an inflated damage.
We're talking PlayStation 2 levels of difficulty.
Yeah, like they just hit harder.
Anything.
Yeah.
They hit harder. You have less health.
Yep. That's it. That's it. I do not recommend playing this on a harder difficulty. Play it on easy. That's what I played it on. It makes the combat actually kind of enjoyable. I can understand a lot of people who are like, no, the combat's great. I think the combat's great for the first 10 hours or so. That's my guess, because looking at the skill tree, you've got that progression. You just build your character, figure it out. It's all new and fun and cool. And then as you get to like 20 and 25 and 30, I imagine that coolness tapers off quite a bit, and it just kind of becomes, well, this is combat.
From what I understand, a lot of people have stated that the combat gets really, really repetitive.
Yeah.
After quote roughly 10 hours.
Yeah.
Because you start to realize that there's a specific skill set that you can use, like a combo set more or less, where you can put other characters' skills along with your own skills.
Yeah,
together.
they're activator and detonator.
Exactly, and they do the most damage. And why would you use anything else?
Yep.
There's
and skill up.
To use a
Skill Up mentions that. I will plug his review in the description for this, you guys, if you want to watch it. Again, it's a very long video, but it is a very fair criticism of this game, I feel, personally. And I'm a fan of this franchise. I'm as much a fan of Dragon Age as I was Assassin's Creed, and this is just as big a letdown to me as Odyssey was. It really is. It hurts to see one of my favorite franchises have this done to it. And I don't know, man, if this is the future of what BioWare is going to present, I think I'm done with Dragon Age, unfortunately.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I think this was supposed to be the make or break game for them, and we know that they've already abandoned Dragon Age Veilguard. I'm sure they're going to update it with patches and stuff.
No
they've
DLC.
abandoned it because there's no DLC.
Yeah.
They're all full hands on deck with Mass Effect 5. And now I'm really worried about Mass Effect 5.
Yep.
They did say that they're going to keep the graphic style, at least, of the traditional Mass Effect game, so we're not going to get any changes there. So
that's good.
But I mean, a game like that, you kind of have to have a realistic art style. If they change that, then you'd be trying to be Astrony or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be really weird.
I will say the skill tree in Dragon Age Veilguard feels pretty cool. Like I think there's a lot of filler in there, but they brought back the Reaver class for warriors, which is really cool. That was what I went with in Origins, and Reaver was really cool. They were like a blood knight, so the more damage you got dealt, the more damage you dealt out, which was really cool. I didn't play it long enough to get to any of that, but it doesn't, the story is interesting enough that maybe I'll read like how the story goes at some point. But I think the fact that this game was originally named Dreadwolf and became the Veilguard says enough as to what happened to this game. I just feel like they had a huge shift in what they wanted this game to be, and whether that was the dev team, whether that was closed-fisted, heavy-handed investors, I don't know. But the result is a disappointing product in a year of fantastic games that have come out, with more to come.
Pretty great year.
Veilguard just isn't even on the menu for me, and it probably won't be until I'm like 80 and like, you know what? I've got nothing better to play. Let's play Veilguard. Like, so
the remastered Veilguard.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna try and play it. I've already also chosen storyline mode, which is the easiest difficulty, just so I can bust through it, because everything I understand is the side quests mean absolutely nothing. Even the companion quests basically mean nothing. And so might as well just rush through the storyline to get to that ending 2 hours to see if it's worth it. And hopefully I can do it in 25 instead of 50.
I think, honestly, if you probably mainline the story and do nothing but, especially on story mode, and you just hack through, run through, you probably get through it in 15, is my guess.
Yeah, that's my hope, because at that rate, I'd be able to do it within a couple of weeks. It wouldn't take too long.
Yeah. Well, that is going to wrap up our main topics. We do have some quickfire news we're going to go over here, so let's jump on into that. Tim, I will open this up real quick with the Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered launching, and unfortunately their curse continuing. We talked about it shortly before we started recording. Every single time this amazing franchise launches something, whether it's a remaster, an entire new game, anything, it's overshadowed by something else. In this case, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered actually looks like it's worth the money, in my opinion, if you never bought it in the first place, or if you can get the $10 upgrade. I think if you never played this game, or you can get that $10 upgrade, it's worth it. The graphical improvements are actually quite staggering, and unfortunately it's been overshadowed by Dragon Age Veilguard and the Monster Hunter Wilds beta that has happened this weekend. But that is out in the wild. I encourage you. It's a fantastic game if you never played it. If you have, and you want to play it again, now's the time to do it. Played a game.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an absolutely gorgeous one, and from the constant video that I've seen and comparison shots and stuff like that, it's a huge upgrade. It's basically Horizon Forbidden West quality.
Yeah.
In the original title.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. It really does. I saw some side-by-side comparisons, and I was very impressed.
Yes, it's easily the best remaster I think I've ever seen. That's how good of an upgrade it is. So that's all you have, right?
That's it. That was the only one I had. The rest are all
right,
you.
So, moving on to remasters.
Mm-hmm.
Or moving on and continuing remasters. I don't know. Nintendo is finally bringing the last of the Xenoblade titles to the Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles X was I guess I can't say shadow, but it was like randomly dropped the other day that they're bringing it to the Switch March 20th of next year. It's the one like redheaded stepchild in the family of the games, because it's Xeno games, Xenoblade, Xenosaga, whatever. Every single one of them at some point they try to change the art style for some reason. And they did that with Chronicles X, and I know it didn't do super well, so they moved right on back to what everyone else liked as far as art style goes. But either way, it's finally making it to the Switch. It makes you wonder if we're done with remasters at this point, although I know there are still several games that people would like to see. Again, keeping up with remasters, or in this case remakes.
Yep.
Silent Hill 2. It just recently got an update, which I know at least one of these was talked about by the community. The community brought it up enough times. The main character, or one of the main characters, Maria, her head was a little large, like 10 to 15% too big, and it was noticeable enough where people would say something about it. And so the developers decided to go ahead and change that. They made her head smaller, and it fits a little bit better. Her body seems appropriate now. But as far as her body seeming appropriate, again, I don't know if this was talked about with the community or they just decided to try and make it a little more accurate to the original game. Originally in the remake, her chest, her cleavage was very small. You couldn't really see anything. And with this new update, they decided to give her some bigger boobs. She got a boob job. So it's kind of funny. It's
very
one of those
funny.
things that you would not have expected. I can see the head, but the boobs one is like, huh. Okay, I guess.
Yeah, that's a choice.
Yep. All right, let's see. Moving on from there, a little bit of sad news. Maybe? I don't know. I don't know if I would consider this sad news. PlayStation has decided to officially kill Firewalk Studios and Concord. Yes, it was an absolute travesty. Not a travesty. Nuclear awful game. I don't know how to say it right.
Pretty big failure.
So bad
Pretty
that,
big failure.
Less than or 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks after it came out, they pulled it from shelves and refunded everyone their money so long as they bought digital. And they said, we're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to fix the game and we're going to relaunch it eventually, so they can hopefully get their money. Speculation has run from 200 million to 400 million to develop. And I mean, my understanding is the majority of the development cost was before PlayStation bought them like a year and a half ago. And so that's not some money that Sony lost because they didn't give them additional money based on what they were developing or what they already put into Concord. But either way, it's still a colossal failure at the very least for a video game. And so Sony decided that I guess there's no fixing it. Maybe they realized finally that even though the moment they announced it, everyone was saying this, we don't need another hero shooter in the vein of Overwatch or whatever. And even though the game had apparently decent foundation, nobody wants it, especially in a paid game. So they decided to go ahead and just shut the studio down. They actually shut down another studio as well that they had bought. It's like a mobile studio. I don't even remember the name. But yep, Concord and Firewalk are officially dead.
I mean, there's so many games in that space now. Like, there's so many. And there's, like, esports can only handle so many of those. Because let's be real, not a lot of people that are outside the esports probably play those. I could be wrong completely, but it doesn't seem like a game that, like, unless you're trying to get sweaty and be competitive, you're probably not going to play it. So, yep. I don't know.
I honestly think they should have just totally cut the losses and made it free to play and just let people play it if they wanted to.
You still got the server costs, though, right? So, like... Yeah.
But, I mean, at the very least, if it was free to play, then it's possible that people would have tried. Like, I would have downloaded it.
Yeah,
give it a try.
Sure, but again, you still got to host those servers and the cost of that. I think financially it just made more sense for Sony to just kill it.
Yeah, ultimately. which is why they did that. And honestly, that's what I think. Although Sony did say that they're not done with live service games, so we'll see.
Just give us The Last of Us. Give us The Last of Us multiplayer. Right? Like, I'll take that as a live service game.
100%. That Spider-Man game that they showed off after they killed. So good.
Yep.
Anyways, moving on from them and moving up to space, one of the better space games that's ever been made. Thank you. One of the better space games that's ever been made, Elite Dangerous, is getting a huge new update or DLC. I don't know exactly what they're classifying this as. Next year. It is, I don't know what they're calling it, but I know it's going to allow you to colonize the Milky Way, which they've slowly added stuff to the game over the last several years. If I'm not mistaken, actually, I think the game might have even launched on the... No, okay, I was going to say console-wise. I was going to say, I think maybe it launched on the PS3, but it didn't. It just launched really close to the PS4's launch. And I bought it at the time, and the game was still so new that it didn't have any updates or expansions or anything like that. And the game was so rough in the sense of... If you didn't have a cockpit of buttons, it was locked behind a menu, behind a menu, behind a menu, behind a menu. And I remember just trying to land the damn aircraft was ridiculous. You had to be in the absolute perfect place. There was if I was 3 degrees rotated, I couldn't land.
Yeah.
So it was so annoying. I was frustrated.
It's a sim, man. It's a sim.
Yeah.
Some people are really into that.
And I got told that if I didn't watch 5+ hours of tutorial videos, it wasn't worth playing.
Yep.
And if I have to watch 30 minutes of tutorial videos, I gotta play a damn game. I shouldn't be playing that game. And I imagine at this point, considering the game is still out, that they've probably streamlined a lot of this and it's more playable to casual players, I guess would be the better way to put it. I know they've added all sorts of crap, and this is supposed to be one of the big ones. And so maybe I'll try it again. I don't know.
It's got a VR mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, Amazon games, the Amazon Prime games, where they give you games every month, Elite Dangerous, they're going to be giving away Elite Dangerous this month for the Epic Game Store. So,
I might have to pick it up.
I mean, why not? It's
cool. It's free.
I don't know what you'll get with it, though, because I know there has been
DLC,
so
of course.
Base game or what? Yeah, so who knows?
Yeah, but at least it gives you the base game, so you can find out if you want to throw money at it, right?
True. Right. It'd be worth trying at the very least. Well, if
speaking of things to try.
Yeah, speaking of... I guess you can say that because it launches in 2 days.
Right? Yeah.
So this last one, if you've ever heard of the anime Death Note, it's a very popular horror slash mystery, I guess. I don't know. It's because you're following both the good guy and the bad guy. So it's like... I don't know how you classify it. Just Google it and see what they classified it as. But anyways, the game is getting a social... or the anime is getting a social deduction 10-player
multiplayer game
for PC, PS4, and PS5, and it launches on the 5th. So just a couple days away. You can Google it and find video of it and whatnot.
Is it Killer Within? Is that it? Yeah, it looks like it's Killer Within. I'm pulling it up now on Steam.
It's got a funky look to it. It's not, just the anime game and it looks like you're playing the anime. No, it looks like you're playing almost like a board game or something like that.
Weird, you're right. Yeah, that's so fucking weird.
Strange. Yeah. And I mean, just the fact that you can play it multiplayer with your friends, that would be interesting.
I need to mention the design. Have you seen the character design for the little miniatures?
Yes, like that's
their eyes are bugged the fuck out. It's really weird.
It's like not chibi, but kind of chibi, but also like their eyes look like I can't remember the main
they're like
demon's
this.
name.
They're just blown out. It's
they look weird. It's I've always liked the anime, and I've been trying to tell my wife to watch it because I know she'd absolutely love it. She loves a mixture of true crime and mystery titles like this. And this game, who knows? Maybe it'll be good. What's that game that like the term sus came from? Is that
Among Us? Yeah,
so
Among
this
Us.
Is an Among Us type game.
Yeah,
if I'm understanding it correctly. Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, and I mean that could be cool. I guess.
If you're into those, you might like it. Yeah,
Yeah, I've never played Among Us, but I know it blew up and it's still pretty popular. So, who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening and bearing with us as we go through a few changes here and some weird breaks. There will be more breaks, obviously, because we're going into the holiday season. I'll announce those on the Discord when we won't be having episodes at least a couple of days in advance. So if you're not on the Discord, I don't know what to tell you. You should be on the Discord. Like, why aren't you on the Discord? The Discord? The Discord.
Come to the Discord and ask me for a game, and I'll give you one.
Whoa.
It's been a while since I said that.
Yeah, it has been a while. He won't tell you what game it is he's giving you, but you'll get a game. It's a mystery box.
Steam code.
Yeah, Steam code. So thanks again to everybody listening. We're going to head over to the Patreon side right now, where we're going to talk about a update about the PS5 Pro, some new information there, as well as update on Insomniac's Wolverine, which is apparently got some promising information. And my first impressions from the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. Again, I didn't play a ton of it, but I have enough to share some opinions on. So we're going to talk about that over on the Patreon side. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/CoinDropVets. $3 a month, you get extra access. We'll talk about upcoming games for the week that you can look forward to. All those links are in the show notes. So if we say something that sounds interesting to you, you can just click on the show note link, take you right to the Steam store or whatever store it's located on that I can find a link for. All of that is exclusive to our Patreon for $3. Pretty reasonable. So, Tim, any final words?
Tell your mama said hi.
Have a great night, everyone.